Hey, you all, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome back to the No-Till Market Garden Podcast Summer Short Series, where we are getting these super nerdy details on specific subjects all summer long while we gear up for Season 3 of the podcast in the fall. Today on the podcast, Jackson caught up with Jill Lada, Hannah Weber, and Michelle Brosius of Green Things Farm Collective to talk about their collaborative setup. There are 5 partners involved in this operation in Michigan, and they talk about some of the challenges with that, with getting it going this year. It's such a great interview, super candid about what it's like to combine forces with other farmers. I'm sure Jackson and I are not the only farmers feeling like these collaborations could be the future if we can get through all the muck of how to make them work. But first, don't forget that if you appreciate any of the work we do here on this podcast or at notillgrowers.com, consider kicking in a few bucks at patreon.com/farmerjesse. Also note that money and all of our ad money and all of our merch money goes into creating more content. Our goal is to keep it coming and keep it free for everyone to listen, to watch, videos, podcasts, all of it. We are going to be doing a ton of work to bring you more no-till info over the winter and over the next year. So if you'd like to support that, go to patreon.com/farmerjesse and kick in a couple bucks. Also at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, you get a shout out on the show. So big shout outs this week to Clement, Travis and Heidi of Arcadia Acres, Judson Taylor, Seeds and Soil Farm, Marc-Andre Giroux, John Mills, Michael Madden, Jacob Arthur, Eric Posh, Clara Coleman, Wild Mountain Seeds, Liam Miller, Bob and Ann Patton, Jared Kirst, Jay Armour, Eric Schlellner, Dan Brisebois, C-Mac Small, Jay McCombs, Adam Hensley, Tim Baldwin, Kevin Keene, Grant Timms, Esoterra Culinary, Patricia Jones, Steve Larson, Fiona and Donnie of Firefly Farm, Ryan Gosser, Jean-Martin Fortier, Yannick LaPlante, Liz R., Adam Thielsen, Jody Miller, Aslan Organics, Osawaga Farm, and Ramblin' Farmers. Huge thanks to all of our supporters. You can also go to Venmo and kick us a couple bucks over there, or just go and sign up at patreon.com/farmerjesse. All right, thanks, y'all. Now, it feels very appropriate to have my notillgrowers.com collaborator Jackson Roulette interviewing folks about collaborative farming, so let's get into it with Jill, Hannah, and Michelle of Green Things Farm Collective.
Michelle, Hannah, and Jill, thanks for taking the time out of the growing season.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
But first, let's get oriented to Greener Things Farm Collective. What scale are you all operating at, and what are some of the enterprises you all have on the farm?
So our farm is 64 acres, and we lease an additional 40 acres. About 40 of that is in pasture and hay for our cattle, and then about 20 acres is wooded, and then we grow about 3 acres of produce, a quarter acre of flowers, and there's a half an acre that was Eric's property that he's been leasing for seed isolation purposes, and we are in the process right now of moving that acreage to the farm property here. And then he also has a small area in his yard in the city of Ann Arbor that is also used for seed isolation purposes.
Yeah, so we have a lot of acreage to work with, and to kind of visualize how we would kind of scale things up. But we do kind of cultivate a fairly small part of that. Nate and Jill, who have been farming here for the last 8 years, have definitely tried out farming on all sorts of different parts of it, and we're definitely working on the most functional spaces that they have found in the past.
It's heavily degraded soil. It's really has been a conventional farm for the last 50 years. Very heavy clay. We suffer with a lot of drainage problems, and so that's kind of why we've moved to smaller, more intensive scale, and no-till has really helped us kind of work around some of those key issues we've had with growing good produce.
Yeah, I can talk about our markets. While we're kind of on this smaller scale, our collective has been when we were working apart from each other in the past, we all had our own enterprises as different businesses, and we brought them together as a collective this first year. And so we're trying a lot of different things this year. We have a number of different memberships, which, you know, are kind of in the same vein as a CSA. But the Land Loom, which was my business, brought on these salad clubs, which are essentially a salad CSA, which are these 5-week spring, June and fall sessions. We have a fall CSA. We do have a summer CSA this year, which is a little bit different than we planned on it being because of the pandemic. We started doing online sales this year, and that really took off because of the pandemic. We also go to a Saturday farmers market, which is our only farmers market right now. We do a collective CSA with a hospital in the area that has a small farm that kind of does the
Aggregation.
Yeah, they aggregate for a number of farmers to bring together a 230 person CSA, which we contribute produce to. And we're kind of trying out a number of different other kind of wholesale things. But this year was definitely kind of a throw all of the things that we have done in the past at the wall and see what sticks and what makes sense to do in the future. And a lot of things are really working out great right now because people are buying a lot of food. But there's certain things that we probably will kind of streamline or kind of make less complicated in the future for the sanity of ourselves.
Yeah, for sure. And we should back up and mention that you all just started this collective this past year. Is that right?
Yes.
And you mentioned Eric and Nate. So if we could back up a second, there are 5 of you. Can we talk about what each of you all sort of brought to the table in the beginning? Because like you said, you all sort of had your own businesses or were involved and then brought them together. So what are the roles of yourselves and Eric and Nate on the farm? Or how do you see those roles? And then how did it begin? How did you all get the idea to come together in this collective?
Well, me and my husband Nate started Green Things Farm Original in 2011 at a farm incubator program, and we were there for 2 seasons. And we had access to free land and infrastructure for 2 years, but at the end of that, they were hoping to graduate farmers onto their own land. And so we were lucky because it was kind of a recession time, and there's also an amazing Greenbelt program in Ann Arbor. So we were connected with developers who were hoping to sell development rights at the time of sale for their property. So we were able to buy this large tract of land at agricultural value. And so our second season at the incubator moved on to this kind of huge bare soil patch. It had been in soybeans, but there was no infrastructure here. And so the last 8 years we've been here, we've really had to put a ton of energy into just infrastructure, water, electricity, a barn. We built a house, and it's a really unique location. We're on the border with the city. We're 5 miles from the farmers market and U of M's campus, and so we're really blessed just because our location is so amazing. But we were really struggling just to make it work with all the money and time it's taken to get this to be an operating farm. Basically, since our second season here, Nate's almost been full time on infrastructure development and soil improvement and systems thinking. He's a real systems person. He's really gifted at just taking nothing and making something amazing out of it. And so it's mostly been my responsibility to run the day-to-day vegetable operation, which we've kind of scaled up and down over the years, and have kind of settled on about a 5-person crew. And we were there for a few years and it was feeling pretty comfortable, but then we also had a child, and I've been wanting to be able to have a little more freedom and just financial freedom as well, to be able to have the childcare we need so I can continue to run the business. And so we were kind of reaching this point last season where it was like, well, maybe we need to change something because we just aren't sustainable as we are. And we have been talking for a while as a group with, we've got a pretty amazing group of farmers in the Ann Arbor area that we all meet monthly for a farmer beer night. And there's a really great community here. And so we had talked with kind of a handful of farmers about different ways to collaborate over the last few years. We talked about making a growers co-op where we could do more aggregated sales. And then maybe I'll pass it off to Hannah to tell you her side of things. But we started talking last summer more seriously about coming together, the 5 of us.
Yeah, so my operation was called the Land Loom, and I also started my operation on the same plot of land that Nate and Jill had started theirs, on this incubator farm. It's a piece of property actually owned by Ann Arbor Township, and I was actually able to stay there for the 5 years that I had my business. I was running a one-woman operation. There were a few times there where I had almost purchased my own piece of property, but it had always kind of fallen through. And the last 2 years, while the market here and our community had been amazing in supporting my operation, and I was always so drawn to farming just because I felt like I had a great market and a great community to sell to, I was really struggling similarly with just the amount of work that I was taking on my own. I really, the last 2 years, kind of burnt out kind of at the end of June, even at the beginning of July, when you're got the bounty of the harvest coming on, and then you're thinking about planting fall crops, and I just, you just kind of hit that wall. And I last year I got to this point where I just knew that it wasn't going to be sustainable for me to do what I had been doing on my own. I was completely disillusioned with farming the way that I had been, and essentially I checked in with Nate and Jill and Eric Campy of Ann Arbor Seed Company and just said, hey, can we meet for a little beer after work and touch base about how we're all feeling? Because I might be ready to throw in the towel. And I don't know, it was something almost that I just wanted to let them know that I was maybe just gonna step out of the game or something. And I don't remember exactly like how we kind of went from that conversation to let's join powers and become mega beauty farm, but do you, yeah,
Well, if you ever change the name, that sounds perfect. Mega Beauty Farm.
Mega Beauty, yeah. But it did really feel like everybody was kind of in the same boat. I mean, Eric also was a one-person farm who had been farming even longer than I had, and he has a wife that does support him, and that probably allowed him to farm a little bit longer on his own, and maybe not feel quite the burden, but he was getting there as well. And so we were all just kind of ready. It was definitely a point of kind of desperation where we were like, we might as well try something together. We've got these resources, we've got this market why not join forces and see what happens? You know, at the very least, we will know that we have tried to do this larger thing. And so yeah, that's my perspective. And I think Michelle needs to talk next about going from being an employee to a partner.
Yeah, all right, I guess that's my cue. Well, I'll just go ahead and say that I remember that evening, well, I guess it was the day of, that Nate and Jill were like, oh yeah, we're gonna have a meeting with Hannah and Eric, and I think they want to talk about farming collaboratively together. It was kind of just like a hunch, but maybe it was actually your guys' idea, unbeknownst to you. And they invited me to, you know, sit down with them and talk. And I had been working at Green Things for the last 3 years at that point as kind of a farm manager. And at first, when we like began this meeting, I was like, I feel so out of place here. I don't have my own farm. What are my qualifications? But you know, then we got to talking, and we started having these monthly meetings, just kind of like talking about, you know, what would this look like if we collaborated, and like how would we do things, and like what would be the benefits, and what would be the drawbacks, and and it all kind of just seemed like a good idea. You know, there weren't really too many reasons not to do it, I guess. You know, I mean, for me, it was definitely more of like as having been a farm manager, I'm sure these guys can tell you, like, you know, farming as a business owner is not an easy thing to do. You know, it's hard to make ends meet just doing that. But like also being a farm hand, it's hard to make a living doing seasonal work, you know, and, you know, Nate and Jill paid me great. I don't want to, like, in terms of farm work, I was definitely making way higher than average, I would say. But, you know, it still is like, if I ever wanted to have a home or a child, you know, it's like, it didn't seem like a very sustainable lifestyle for me. So the prospect of like starting a collaborative farm and, you know, being able to have something to work towards and build equity in was a really appealing idea. And I felt very lucky to be the one person who didn't have a farm to be included in the discussion and in the operation. So that's kind of my background. I guess I didn't really have much farming experience before I came to Green Things. I had other, I guess, somewhat relevant experience, but Green Things was definitely my first farming experience, and I have loved, you know, all of the good times and the bad. And you know, Nate and Jill and Hannah and Eric at this point are like family to me, and it so far it's been feeling really great to be doing this together. You know, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So you all talked about getting together for regular meetings. Do you all meet on a regular basis to talk about the farm, whether your experiences? Do you make time for meetings to discuss long-term decisions? So how do you make long-term decisions, or how do you all check in with each other on an ongoing basis?
Because this is our first year, we're pretty much making all of our decisions for the first time. So there is so much decision making going on. There's so much communication that needs to happen. Sometimes it feels overwhelming how much communication we need to do. But we have kind of developed a good weekly communication system where on Monday mornings, the partners do try to take at least part of the morning to do a farm walk and look at each space together and make observations and talk about how different plots need to be flipped, what needs to happen next, what's the timeline for these different spaces, you know, what's going on with this plant, do we need to, you know, do something differently, should we do something differently next year, kind of taking regular notes and making kind of a task list for the week, and then also kind of more slightly longer term items that need to be thought about over the course of the next month. In terms of long-term planning, I would say we don't have a super hard set way of doing that yet. I would say we did a hell of a lot of that in the winter, and that's probably how it will go this coming season as well, where, you know, we're kind of chugging along right now, kind of doing what we do throughout the farming season. And there's, you know, every week there's kind of a thing that we're like, oh, we need to think about this, and maybe next year we'll know that this happens at this time and we can think about it in a more long-term way. But I would say that this year it's a lot of kind of just observing, you know, the challenges that come up and the kind of ways that things are organically developing, and then kind of making plans based on the way that things are playing out. I don't know if there's anything else you want to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a solid 4-hour weekly meeting that we're doing at the time of our field walk, and then kind of as needed we'll do like an after hours meeting. It seems like every 2 or 3 weeks that we have like an evening meeting together to talk about something. And it's been a stressful time a little bit lately, and we'll have just like, okay, management crew is gonna have a little time off now so that we can check in, and mostly just to manage stress levels and check in with each other and just make sure that everyone understands where everyone else is at. We've been making hay this week and just everything broke. And so Nate just had like, you know, he's the fixer on the farm, and so it's all on him to make it work. And I think so far, communication wise and stress levels and everything, we've done really well. Like just being able to take the time to say, hey, I need help, or I'm sorry, I'm absent, things like that.
Yeah, we're learning, and we're definitely making progress, I would say. You know, I feel like there's a little bit of a learning curve, and I feel like, you know, over the course of the season, we've kind of been able to, like, I feel like we are pretty lucky in that we are all, you know, maybe we haven't quite figured out the best way to communicate with each other yet, but I feel like we're all definitely willing to, like, work on those things, and, like, it does feel like we have made a lot of progress in terms of, like, being able to share our feelings and our needs and our, you know.
I think a lot of that is kind of the benefit that we have all been farm owners or farm managers for quite a long time, because we understand that there are really stressful aspects of farming, and we all have some coping strategies for that, and having a team who can lift the burden for you is kind of a relief that we're all appreciating. I couldn't imagine going into this with people I've never farmed, who have never farmed in general. Just the learning curve of farming with my husband for the first time it took us like a few years to really get into a stride where we worked well together. And I would say, don't start a farming cooperative with someone you've never farmed with before.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, or at least people who don't understand after several seasons, sort of that rhythm and that those stress points, so that they know what's coming.
Yeah.
And you had talked about you know, meeting somewhat more frequently. How are day-to-day operations managed? Is that something you take care of in a weekly meeting, or you know, who decides what goes on in a given day and what enterprise needs the attention on that day?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely still kind of like feeling those out, but I would say right now in this high season, I guess this feels true for me because I am the most, my role is in the marketing and sales and kind of harvest side of it, but pretty much 5 mornings a week we have something to harvest. So our mornings start off with the majority of our crew on harvest task, and then we usually kind of roll into whatever seems to be the steps that we need to take to get more plants in the ground. So it's a lot of bed prep earlier on in the week, and then we kind of go into doing the weeding later on in the week. But yeah, that's a lot of the kind of the farm walk that we do on Monday morning, is kind of just creating this big task board and then kind of placing it across, you know, the days of the week and deciding how we need to get to the tasks that need to happen. And so it's generally kind of harvest in the morning, and then kind of getting the rest of the bed prep to planting to weeding.
We do start our day every day at the whiteboard, and kind of as a whole group with who's on crew that day and the management team. We're all there probably for 10 minutes, and we just kind of go over the morning. And then when lunch is finishing, we do another 10-minute meeting to talk about the afternoon. And that flow seems to be really working pretty well for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say one of the benefits of having 5 managers is that, like, while there is usually, like, you know, the bulk of the work in the morning is harvest, like, we are able to, you know, kind of divide and conquer in a really productive way. You know, we can have, like, maybe a couple managers helping out with harvest, but then, you know, usually a couple of us are able to break off and, like, either start working on bed prep with just ourselves or even another person or two. And that really allows us to get a lot more done. I think we all, you know, sometimes I think we get stressed out by, like, the amount of things that are on the board, and then forget that we are 5 managers and can actually accomplish a lot in, you know, a much shorter amount of time than it takes to do that stuff by yourself. So it's usually a nice surprise.
And about that, so you say that there are 5 farm managers. I guess you all, Michelle, Hannah, Jill, Nate, and Eric, do you all have any other employees that are helping you on the farm, or is it just the 5 of you? And then my follow-up question is, how is that different than the top-down farm owner, farm manager way of running a farm?
Yeah, I'd say we probably have 15 people working here day to day. A lot of part-timers that are coming 2 or 3 days a week.
A handful of volunteers.
Yep, some volunteers, but somewhere between 8 and 12 people here maybe at a time. And 5 of us are included in that. We have 1 full-time employee who's joining us from last season. So in the beginning of our year, it was the 5 of us and Megan. And we kind of didn't commit to any staff beyond that in the beginning because we weren't sure what 5 experienced farmers could accomplish. So it was kind of like, maybe we can just do this, the 5 of us. And that very quickly was not true. And so, yeah, we've kind of just hired people as needed. And one of the benefits of the pandemic is a lot of people are looking for work. And so we've been able to get some great people on board. All of the people besides Eric and Nate on our farm are women, and so it's just happened that way. But
Awesome lady crew.
Awesome lady crew. That's kind of why we chose the 3 of us to represent our farm today. Is just because this is who we are. And what else were we going to talk about? Is
well, I mean, the different roles of each person. I mean, we kind of tried to come up with specifically what each person was going to do, and then we did kind of, I feel like, organically move into these different roles. But it has been really nice because each one of us can kind of focus on a specific part of the farming and know that there's 4 other people completely invested and knowledgeable about their role, and they probably know more about that than you do, which is why they were kind of, you know, more geared towards that role at the time. I know I went straight into the kind of marketing and harvest. I think partly because the last 2 years when I burnt out by myself, I kind of went into triage mode and said, okay, this is what needs to happen on my farm. I know that I need to harvest and sell produce. And so that's kind of what my brain is kind of automatically moved towards. But like Jill said, Nate is still definitely the kind of infrastructure and fix-it guy. And it's great to know that when the delivery van breaks down on Monday, for the most part, he's got his brain on it and he can get it fixed, by Wednesday, and we still have it on the road for, the next big delivery. And I don't have to, think about that and try to do something that is just not in my wheelhouse at all. Do you want to, Jill, talk about the kind of other roles that we've been
I
feeling out?
guess, yeah, Eric has kind of turned into our bed prep master. We do a lot of deep compost mulching, and we basically are growing on the same acreage as we have for the last 4 years or so. But we've pretty much tripled production on those beds. And so I think it's been a little shocking to all of us. The scale at which we are operating is just so much greater than any of us are used to. And so we've had to really figure all those details out. And yeah, so role-wise, Eric is doing tons of bed prep and planting, and then seeds are his passion. And so we're just getting into a lot of the seed harvest now. He toned it way back this year because he knew we were going to be in this transition year. And so we're kind of growing the minimum seeds we need to maintain his catalog. But then it has also been a record-breaking seed sales year. And so he, for about a month, was almost full-time unpacking and shipping seeds. We've probably sold 4 times more than he's ever sold before. And then I am kind of in this nebulous place in my role on the farm. I think because I kind of have done everything, I'm kind of a floater. I kind of do a little bit of all of the things. My main responsibility to the business is kind of running the business sides of things. I do a lot of cash flow planning and spreadsheets. That's kind of my bread and butter. Do all the accounting and invoicing. I love field mapping and just making sure each bed is profitable. We are kind of thinking long term, we need to be grossing about $500,000 for this to be sustainable for us. And so thinking about what is the profitability per bed that we can get on our farm, and then scaling it to that number of beds has kind of been a goal for our next few years. Just a little side note, we've scaled up so much this year. Last year, we had made $90,000 gross, and this time, as of today, we've made $237,000 gross. And based on my cash flow estimates for the year, our goal for this year was $280,000 total. And so it's just been insane. It's hard to know if this is the new normal for us just because of our ability to farm better with a better team, or is this just a pandemic year and it's kind of a fluke, or I basically had to throw all of my spreadsheets out, projections for this year, because it's just been so different. And so it does feel just a little unstable, going forward, what this means for our business, but good problems so far.
Sure. And then especially Michelle, how do you feel going from, working for Green Things to now being in a collaborative management position? How do you feel that has shifted the focus of the farm, or the feel of the farm, or even your quality of work or life on the farm?
That's a great question. Well, I feel like I've had, I don't want to say the opposite experience from everybody else, but opposite in like a good way. You know, everybody else was busy running their own farm in previous years, and I was just, you know, one of the minions previously. I mean, not exactly, I still had a little bit of freedom, but, you know, this year being one of the owners, it's, well, for one thing, it feels really good to be like working towards something, to like feel invested in a thing and feel like I'm working towards a more sustainable career and business that I am fully invested in. You know, I think I'm sure a lot of farm workers kind of have the same thought, like, where do I go from here? You know? And yeah, at first I wasn't sure what my role was going to be on the farm, and then I kind of fell into being kind of the nursery manager, and I ran our plant sale in the spring, and I also over the winter spent a lot of time setting up spreadsheets on Airtable. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's kind of like a more user-friendly version of Excel, and I think it's been really useful so far. We've been able to, like, we had essentially did all our crop planning there, and some of the useful things about it are that you can like take one spreadsheet and like make multiple views. So like we have our crop planning spreadsheet that essentially has like all of the information we need to know for like all of the crops that we had planned in the year. And I can make different views that are like for our nursery seeding and for our direct seeding and for like our transplant view. And you know, with just the click of a button, I can be looking at different views and looking at the information that I need to see for that week, you know. So I feel like it's really helped to just keep things super organized. And like we also are doing our like harvest log stuff and our record keeping for like our organic certification. So all of our like amendments and like, you know, organic spray stuff is being tracked in that as well. And I, you know, I feel like over this winter, we're going to discover a lot of ways that this is going to be useful in terms of like, you know, planning the next few years or whatever. And, you know, I'm thankful that everybody's been like really good about being sure to keep up with that. Like we actually put a computer in the barn, like next to our wash pack this year. And I feel like that has made a huge difference in terms of like what we've been able to do, you know, like, you know, yeah, we're like entering all this stuff into this table that is all like connected, and like, you know, I can like pull up essentially one bed and see like what all the things that we've grown in it that year, and like, you know, like how much we harvested from it and like where it's going. And like then, you know, also like Hannah's been able to do a lot of her like barn to door stuff on the computer, which is, you know, when somebody comes up and is like, oh, my order's not in the stand, like what do I do? And it's like, well, let me pull it up on the computer that's right here. So that's been super helpful. Who knew a computer could do so many things?
Technology. We also got a label printer.
Oh yeah, that's been really
so
fun.
So amazing. We can actually see what we have harvested in our cooler without looking through the bins.
Yeah.
Magic.
Wow. So you all do use the barn to door to manage
so that was something that we had decided to look into before, like from the get-go, before the pandemic, primarily for using for wholesale, was you know, having an online inventory that our wholesale customers can go in and make orders, and we're not dealing with overselling something because of the timeline of the ways that different customers want to order from us. It's much more streamlined. We were also going to open that online ordering system up to our summer CSA members originally, just as kind of a trial for online ordering this year. But then we quickly, in March, it became the main way that we were selling our produce exclusively. And so now we have our online inventory, and anybody can go on and make orders for pickup from the farm on Wednesday evenings and Saturday mornings, or they can pick up from our Saturday Carytown Farmers Market stall. And that has been a really revolutionary thing. It has allowed us to pack orders in this very efficient way. It does the invoicing for all of those, and we can use the invoice as a packing slip and kind of create this whole packing line that we can, move, almost $3,000 worth of produce through our farm stand in one evening, and know that it's all been pre-sold and people are just going to pick it up, and it feels very clean. And I would say that we were very grateful to have gotten that kind of rolling before all of this hit, and not to have been scrambling for some online system at the beginning of the season. And now it feels like a whole new enterprise that we're very grateful to have as part of our farm.
Michelle, you went from being an employee of the of Green Things Farm to now a manager. And as you all think sort of about the future of management or members in this collective, have you all thought about mechanisms for people to join or maybe even to leave the collective?
So we did hire a lawyer at the beginning of our discussions of merging our farm businesses, and he's the one who kind of coached us through the process. So we ended up making a 5-person LLC as our business structure. And part of our operating agreements that he kind of drafted for us are ways for members to leave. We do not have a clear way at the moment to bring on new members, but I think as we see how successful this feels, we do have long-term staff. I could see expanding and allowing people to join on in the future. I think that's kind of a big project for us this winter, is to kind of create more of our operating rules and procedures for our collective. We have a really complicated legalese document at the moment that we all felt good about at the time of our business mergers. It was really about figuring out merging our assets and making sure everyone is getting an equal share of the business was our main focus this past winter. And so I think going forward, that's definitely something we're going to be developing.
Oh, I was just going to say that I think in forming this whole thing, we all kind of agreed that part of the reason for forming it is to make a business that can bring on new people at some point, or like a way for managers and workers to like move up in the business and work towards something, So that was definitely part of what we were thinking about in forming this, but we just haven't hashed out the details yet.
Well, there are so few farms that are operating in this way. There's so few of you that somebody's got to go first and somebody's got to figure it out. Then as you all develop best practices or things that work for you, some of that may translate, if not exactly, at least generally, to other farms that are looking at doing something similar. Speaking of, what are some of the challenges that you all have faced in farming collectively this first year?
I think for me, the hardest thing we've had to work through so far is the discussion of building another hoop house here. We have several large hoop houses, and as we scale up and do more spring production, we've really focused more on fall production just based on our soils and things here. We could definitely use another hoop house. I kind of had a panic when we got to the moment of pulling the trigger, because I don't really want to be left with a huge scale farm and a big operation if for some reason in the next couple of years everyone else gets tired and decide they want to move on. Me and Nate are here to stay. unless something really drastic happens, like we will continue on this farm operation. And so I guess the level of just faith I have in our ability to make money and our ability to work together long term came into question. And so it really ended well. I think we all kind of came to the point where it was like, we do not have to do this at this moment. We can wait. And so that's kind of been my most memorable challenge. And then just kind of an ongoing challenge for us is that we are the only ones with a child. And so we have to end work at 5 because we've got responsibilities. And it's very easy when you're kind of a mobile farmer kind of person to work longer or work odd hours and things like that, but we really can't. And because Nate and I are both owner managers, we both need to be fully present. And so trying to work while we have our son with us just isn't super functional. And then it's been extra difficult because our childcare has all gone out the window because of COVID. And so, but then it's also great. We kind of have this family mentality, and our son is on the farm frequently with his grandparents. And so I'm very happy to have a lot of positive people in our life that he can spend his time with.
Yeah, I would say that kind of comes into like the larger discussion of when it is the right time to make larger investments in this farm. Are we all, this is only the first year. So while we're having this windfall year and it feels like, yes, we should purchase this hoop house now because we have the money and we know that we can move the food and, all these things, we still are so new. And so kind of gaining that trust in our long-term kind of sustainability as a collective, and just seeing how things are playing out. Like Jill said, not only do they have the child, they're the only people who are living on the farm. And so how do we kind of balance these, these different ways of living and engaging with the farm? And what does that look like in the long term? How do we create kind of more equity around how each person wants to be spending their time, and how they need to be spending their time based on their family and their other obligations in their life. I know that we've also kind of talked about how we all, while we are all really appreciating having this kind of more supportive structure in the collaborative, it is kind of reduces some of the like autonomy that we had in the past. Nate and Jill were able to like feel good about like, leaving the operation for, a day or part of the day to, be with their child in the past. And that feels more challenging now. I know that in the past I, made decisions to like, cut out at 3 p.m. On my own farm, and then come back at like, 5 or 6 p.m. And so just kind of figuring out how we can, maybe standardize the way that we're working on the farm right now a little bit, just to make sure we're feeling balanced, but then seeing maybe more of a long-term way that each one of us can be engaging in the farm in the way that makes the most sense for ourselves, is just it feels like a long-term goal. I would say, a lot of people have asked us, tell us about your model, and, even like, can we become, a partner in this, and, or, how should we do this? And I, while I believe that I do have like faith that our model is pretty strong, I would say that it feels really unique, and that the group dynamic really is such an important part of it. You can't just say, oh, if you get 5 farmers together and you have this amount of land and you're this, you know, you have these markets, then it's going to work out. I mean, you know, like, it's been amazing to see how each one of the 5 partners does have these pretty like different skill sets and different ways of thinking about things that are so complementary, and that like could possibly not be the case for another group of 5 people, even, you know, if they were kind of in all, even if the other variables that they were working with were similar. You know, I think it is so case by case, but I would say that the most important part really is finding people that you trust and that you respect to farm with, and having the same goals. I think that's the biggest like hurdle to overcome. You know, coming from somebody who was working or farming by myself because I had not yet found my own farm partner, and knowing how hard that can be to find the person that actually wants the same things as you in terms of farming and in terms of lifestyle. I think it is almost kind of a miracle that we all like live in Ann Arbor and we're kind of in the same boat at the same time. So, you know, I think that it is a great thing to do. It feels like a really modern way of farming at the same time that it feels like a really ancient way of farming. It feels very communal, but it is very unique and should be considered very, very deeply before you try to do this with other people.
Yeah, I feel like we really kind of had a perfect storm, you know, with the pandemic. I mean, I don't want to say that that's been a good thing, but like in a weird sort of way, it has been great for us. But also just in the sense that like we have this like, you know, well, Nate and Jill had this amazing location, and like we do get along so well, and yeah, it's just I wanted to say that our community has also been like very, very supportive, and we actually are gonna at the end of today have a special farm tour for our supporter share members, who at the very beginning of the season signed up for all of our CSAs, and so this we had initially included like a couple event passes in that membership, but obviously we're not doing events, so this was kind of our way to say like thank you and like come see how we're doing things and interact with us in a socially distanced manner on the farm. So yeah, community's been very supportive, and I don't know that it would have worked so well anywhere else. You know, Ann Arbor's a pretty progressive place with that likes good food, it turns out.
I think it really could work for a lot of people, though. It really is this kind of good model, I think, of combining established farm businesses at this kind of super tiny scale. You kind of develop your own niche in the market, and then we've kind of now combined all of our niches to make the mega beauty farm that is just so awesome, because we do have these like the salad clubs, and Eric was doing a head lettuce program where we're doing 200 feet of lettuce every week, and our fall CSA has been really unique. We do everything by the pound, so it's pack your own box basically. And then we do you pick flower CSA, and had been selling bouquets at a hospital, which was a really great enterprise, but is now not happening. But in response, we just upped our flower CSA membership, and it's been awesome. And so I think, and then being able to divide the work to be able to scale it more appropriately has really been, I think, our success stories, because we were all doing these things at such a small scale, even though they were really successful and great ideas. Now we've been able to like have them be a more sustainable size to be profitable, and have someone who is spending almost a full day online doing marketing, someone who's spending a full day doing bookkeeping, you know, and it's not all the same person. And there's still someone who's very experienced leading the crew on bunch sizes. And then just, I think from a personal standpoint, this is kind of back to an earlier thing you were saying, but I love just the camaraderie of the farm is its own entity now. It's not like Nate and Jill's farm. Everyone, you have to like Nate and Jill and like working for them. Like, oh, you're part of Green Things. Like, we're all working towards this common goal. It's not anyone's fault that this bad thing happened, and it's everyone's success story that this good thing happened. And so that has been a huge weight off of my shoulders, and I think it's been a really great thing about what we're doing. But yeah, I would encourage other farmers to try it. It's, maybe volunteer on each other's farms at first, or
Hannah did come work for a little bit when she was
struggling. I was like, I just need to farm with other people.
Well, that's a great idea, to spend time with the other prospective farmer members. Volunteering and learning how, not only how they farm, but just how do you communicate with them, because that seems to be such a central piece.
Oh, we came to the Daniel Mays.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was our.
What did you take away from it?
Oh, that was like,
we were ready to do it.
Yeah, this was like let's go on a trip together and see if we like each other enough to make this a real thing. And we went rock climbing, and so it was sort of like a trust fall exercise.
Yeah.
We stayed in the same tiny house together. And then we were like, and on top of starting a collective, let's be a no-till farm too. And so we checked all the boxes, and we came home from that trip just ready to commit and sign all the papers. And so thank you.
Yeah, it was good.
No, thank you for coming. That's a great story. Nothing like a multi-state road trip. To see if you like someone enough to start a farm with them.
All right, if you enjoyed that episode, make sure to follow Green Things Farm Collective on Instagram and all the places. Links will be in the show notes. Also, give Jackson a follow. Dude works super hard. Sign up for patreon.com/farmerjesse. That's our support page. That's how you can kind of kick us a couple bucks and say, hey, this podcast like brings value and stuff. So appreciate it. Subscribe to this podcast, rate and review it. Huge thanks to Jackson, obviously. Also to Josh Satin. Enormous thank you to my wife and partner in life, Hannah Crabtree. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you next week. Bye.